Welcome back to another episode of Fast Casual Nation, the podcast. We are, of course, diving in to technology today. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about here on this show, typically we're talking with brand leaders in fast casual concepts, but today we're going to kind of take it a step further and go into talking with a leader of a technology company that is changing the game in loyalty. And I want to welcome to the show the CEO and co-founder of Punchh, Sastry Penumarthy. Great to have you on the show, Sastry.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our audience, Sastry, let's learn a little bit about Punchh and your program. You guys have kind of come a long way. You're one of the first companies back in the mid 2000s that started developing mobile loyalty programs, which at that time were very, very rare. How far have you guys come? What is kind of the product setup right today?
So Punchh today is the industry's leading loyalty and engagement platform. We're a software company. As you correctly said, we started with a mobile-centric view of the world. And today we help restaurant brands to build customer relationships that drive repeat visits and average spend. And we work with over 200 brands across the world,
wow.
including
That's
25
great.
of the top 100 brands in the US. And we power about 125 million consumer relationships. And our software is deployed across 90,000 plus restaurant locations.
That's amazing. You guys have come a long way. Loyalty, of course, has become mainstay, especially in this pandemic, where technology has kind of been the life raft for most restaurants, especially fast casual QSR, that has been able to get them through this very troubling and tough time. So when you look at concepts, because this episode today is talking about how to save your restaurant with technology, when you look at concepts that were in the right place at the right time, either from a loyalty, an online ordering, has anybody stuck out to you in terms of a brand that says, wow, they really did it right, or they got a lot of their tech stack in place before all this took place? What would you say are some of the winning brands that you've seen?
Yeah, I think there is many. In fact, if you look at the recent Fast Casual 100 list, we have over 25 customers that are in that list. Essentially, I think fast casual is the most tech-savvy segment within the restaurant world.
Right.
And because one, they themselves are startups. They are
Yep.
disrupting the big players in the restaurant world.
For sure.
They're early adopters to technology. They're willing to make decisions fast. And so they've been fantastic partners for us as we worked with them to deploy these loyalty programs.
Yeah.
But they tend to think about loyalty much more fundamentally and in the right way. So that has helped them a lot during this pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've seen brands like Chipotle really jump out with their digital sales. They've gone really skyrocketing. Even their stock has somewhat recovered because of their position from a digital standpoint, both on loyalty as well as online ordering and pickup and takeout. Brands like Modern Market, which is kind of one of our poster children that we've been watching, a lot of technology stack was in play with them. They were also able to move into even self-delivery, which I thought was interesting. Kind of your thought on when you look at loyalty, because this is a science for most restaurant chains, that they really have to understand how it works from a consumer mindset and how to put those building blocks in place. When you look at brands out there today, just like what I just mentioned, Chipotle, Modern Market, those types of brands, what are some of the things that a brand should be doing today to set up their cycle for really improving loyalty behavior?
Yeah, I think the fundamental thing about loyalty is that there are two key things that the brands need to be thinking about. Customers ultimately should find it super easy to do business with brands.
Right.
And that starts with really thinking about how are customers engaging with the brands. When I say engagement, I'm specifically talking about how easy is it to perhaps do business with you as a brand via a mobile app or on a website, digitally especially, and then of course also in store.
Yeah.
And the second thing is how easy is it to place an order, to earn points for their relationship. So those are fundamentally goes into thinking about customer experience as it's enabled by technology. That's one part of it. Because traditionally brands, when they think about loyalty programs, they're thinking just about the point structure, which is important, but not sufficient when you think about loyalty. Because loyalty should really be able to help you understand the customers better, make it easy for them to engage with you wherever they want to engage, online or offline.
Interesting.
And then for you to be able to understand each of them and their unique preferences so that you're able to make this a one-to-one relationship.
Yep.
And then you'll be successful.
Yeah. And I think you're right. You know, you've got as a brand leader, whether you're a 5-unit chain or a 50 or a 500 unit chain, the key in terms of loyalty right now, and I've talked about this on many of our episodes, is that loyalty could be one of the key drivers in being able to save the restaurant industry coming out of this pandemic, mainly because consumers in many cases are very driven by habit. And habit usually breeds loyalty if it's done right. You know, because there's been times, and I'll use Chipotle again. You know, for many years I've been a Chipotle fan. I use the product. I love their restaurants, and you know, even through some of their downs, one thing that I always did like was their digital experience. But they kind of fell off the boat about 3 or 4 years ago in their digital experience before Brian came on, their new CEO. Here recently, they've really ramped up their technology, and it's improved exactly the point you just made, which is making it super easy to do business with them and gain rewards and get those kind of things, almost gamify the system for placing your everyday lunch order. Is that something that you see with your technology at Punchh? Are you guys using those kinds of tactical behavior tools to get gamification going for loyalty?
We absolutely do. Loyalty, behind the scenes is a science, but in front of the consumer, it's a game and it's a relationship.
Right.
So for the consumer, it's loyalty has to be completely behind the scenes in the sense that all I'm doing at the moment is I'm ordering a meal.
Yeah.
When I order a meal, I should be able to quickly see any relevant offers for me.
Yep.
If I'm a vegetarian, I should only see vegetarian dishes as opposed to a pepperoni pizza, as an example.
Right.
That is just one case. And then similarly, if I have, let's say, 2 more visits to go before I earn my full rewards, then there are interesting ways we can gamify that aspect of my customer journey in order to make the next 2 visits faster than I would normally do. Or if I'm, spending below average, then the brand needs to know that, okay, what am I going to do to increase my spend? Whether that's promoting a new side or promoting potentially a different type of item like a family meal and so on. So that has to happen almost seamlessly. And the more you're able to do that, with both personalization and ease from a digital perspective, you're going to get the right results.
For sure, yeah. Okay, so that's I think that's a given. If you are building your business right now digital, if you don't have a loyalty program in place, you should be obviously deploying one very quickly. I'm kind of curious on the next topic, and that is curbside. Curbside we've talked about with several experts over the past few months. Because the shift of takeout has moved up the ladder in terms of percentage of sales, curbside has been a very effective tool especially for fast casual to be able to implement these kinds of sales increases. The question I have, if you look at fast casual, in many cases they don't have dedicated parking lots. So you're usually in shared parking lots. Have you guys seen anything out there in the market so far that has kind of surprised you in how fast casuals are dealing with curbside?
Yeah, first of all, I think the key thing to really put some context on the curbside is that, until very recently, there's been shelter in place. where
Yeah.
you just couldn't open in store.
Right.
And even those markets where you have been able to open, there are regulations that say you only have about 25%
So many
seating
people.
capacity, for
Yeah.
example. So therefore, curbside is mandatory. And so, to your point, I think based on the location, you have to be able to adapt curbside. And there are, I would call it, parking lot is
Yeah.
one of them. But if you don't have a parking lot, which is very true, often the case in urban settings,
Yeah.
then the curb is your sort of serving area, if you will. And so, and that becomes how you manage that becomes your new customer experience.
Yeah,
What
sure.
used to be the decor in the restaurant is now how
Exactly.
efficiently I can pick up and how efficiently I can be in the queue without being too close to other customers and so on. So there's a few things that are nuances some time ago. Now they're the differentiators for brands. For them to get it right is very important.
Yeah, for sure. I think curbside is it's gonna be one of those things to watch very closely. I know here on Fast Casual Nation, we're gonna be keeping a very close eye on technology being implemented in curbside, especially. And I still think that there's some potentials for integration of loyalty in that area, because I see this as a factor that we could see continual growth, even though restaurants are seemingly going back to normal operations, even though there are limited scenarios in most states for developing that. I'm kind of curious, when you look at the technology stack today, so you guys walk in a lot with operators that already have an array of technology tools at their leisure. They've got a great new POS system, maybe a different kind of mobile app or ordering system. What are some of the key things that you've seen that says, hey, this is a brand that's really kind of put together the building blocks for getting themselves in the place they need to be for dealing with these kind of scenarios?
Yeah. So I think particularly, if I think about particularly the use case for curbside, right? What has happened in the pandemic is the very first couple of weeks, many brands suddenly realized the basics have to be done. The basics are, of course, be having a place to order online, having a place to at least some sort of a ad hoc process for curbside pickup. And then, of course, obviously, in some cases, having delivery partnerships.
Right.
But then the next set of innovations are about really thinking from the ground up how curbside should work. And how curbside would, and that means effectively, knowing, allowing, first of all, a consumer to indicate a preference that they would like to do either curbside pickup or contactless delivery.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to curbside pickup, they need to be able to say, okay, I have left my home, or for the brand to be able to track them as to say, okay, the customer is about, let's say, 15 minutes away. Now I should start with the cooking process.
Reverse logistics.
The food is hot and ready to go by the time they arrive.
Yeah.
Or more important things like as we talked about earlier, like if you have a downtown pickup and there is very little space, you couldn't possibly have a regular queue-like system. You need to maybe have either a two-way messaging or a virtual queuing, those types of technologies to make it easy for the consumer to identify themselves when they show up and have their place without actually feeling the necessity to go all the way up to the counter.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
These nuances matter.
Yeah. That'll be interesting to see if there is some reverse logistics technology that starts to move into that, because obviously that does mean, in most cases, apps are already sharing their geolocation data as it is, once you're running the app, if you're going to pick up a food order. I think that's a great thing, because that is one scenario that could put a damper on curbside, especially as orders start to increase at lunch, because I've already seen this in some operators, is you get a cold lunch, or you get a product that's a little bit, it's a little wilted, it doesn't travel well, and now you have a problem, because now that's a true guest service issue, and being able to maintain loyalty in that kind of scenario becomes a challenge. So it'll be interesting to see the technology companies that kind of step up and kind of do that. I could see Uber could probably do that right now. They're already tracking your phone, so they know where you are.
Yeah, we're in fact partnering with some new generation API companies, for example, where I think you mentioned things like tracking a customer in an elegant way without kind of sacrificing privacy.
Right.
So there are companies like Radius and many others where
Yeah.
that makes it very easy. Then there is, as a full stack service providers, there are the likes of Rakuten, who are
Mm-hmm.
partners like for
Yeah.
us, and they make it easy for curbside pickup, be able to predict how many people are going to be in the queue, and many other things, so that you can make that a very robust offering for your customers,
Yeah.
as opposed to something that your staff have to go, figure out in their little time that they have.
Yeah, yeah. I've talked to some guys that have implemented Rakuten, and I have not seen great performance on that on the backside. Have you seen technologies roll out too early that aren't ready for the space as we see some of the pressures being put on technology companies right now to kind of ramp up their service offerings for brands? Have you seen any kind of early rollouts that have not necessarily perform well?
Yeah, I think I think what is important for companies to do, right? So the important thing about curbside is that many of the core technologies that together form the curbside experience
Yeah.
are not entirely new.
Right.
Whether it's geofencing, whether it's location monitoring, things like that are not new.
Mm-hmm.
But for curbside, you're combining a lot of these things, and so partnering with the right company allows you to put them together well. And that's a
Yeah.
key sort of thing. It starts with a consumer raising their hand and saying, I would like to do curbside. Here is my order, and
Yeah.
here's when I'm going to be there. And then when they show up, for them to be able to easily check, quote unquote, check in. All of these things traditionally have meant behind the scenes there are several systems that do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so without the right partner, you can't put them together elegantly and robustly. So that's the secret sauce here.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's going to be the key as we see companies kind of bind together to try to create these new solutions, because that's something that's being done across the industry right now, is hacking stuff together to try to break it and fix it and get it in a position where it can actually serve the purpose of moving forward. Let's talk about consumer confidence, because that's one of the factors in the return to normal and the recovery. Is we are seeing some good signs in terms of positive numbers here just in the last week in some of the states like Texas, even Georgia, and even here in Florida, where we've seen some pretty good traffic numbers picking up. Do you feel like consumer confidence is back to a state that the restaurant industry can start a recovery model as long as they still are doing all of these other, social distancing, remote ordering applications? What is your thoughts on where the industry is right now around this?
So we are actually quite encouraged by the trend since the beginning of the pandemic. So, of course, as you know, during the early stages of the pandemic, sales dropped precipitously for many brands, and by as much as 50 to 75%. What we are seeing is that there is a couple of types of brands overall in the restaurant industry that have completely, not seen that same declines. So, for example, some of the QSR brands like pizza brands and chicken wing brands, for them, this has been a record year.
Yeah, they pretty much were untouched.
Exactly. When you think about Papa John's, they reported a 27% increase in same-store sales compared to last year, same time.
Wingstop, great numbers.
Wingstop is same. You mentioned Chipotle. Those are all good examples. However, many other brands have struggled. And but in the last 2 to 3 weeks or so, we have seen a resurgence in order volumes.
Right.
I wouldn't quite say all the way back to February numbers, but close enough.
And you guys are tied directly into the transactions, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so you're seeing the growth elements of most of these brands. And you said, what, how many thousands of locations do you currently operate on?
We are under contract for about 90,000 plus locations. And so
that's a pretty good data sample.
Exactly, it is. And one of the things we have been doing is, it used to be a hobby. It has become a full-time job, which is to really look at the data and patterns across all the brands that we serve. And we feel essentially that's going to be an important service that we can offer to them, because from a brand perspective, many of them want to know how their own operations are performing.
Right.
In terms of the change in day parts, change in product mix or channel mix. And some of these are critical for them to understand especially if they're operating with lean teams.
Yeah.
But then the second big thing that they also benefit from is the ability to see how they're performing compared to other brands.
Mm-hmm.
That way they're able to understand, okay, is this something that everybody's seeing?
Are your metrics
or is
right?
it something that is unique to me? And then make course corrections.
Yeah, for sure. That's something we've talked about many times here on Fast Casual Nation. If you're a brand out there right now and you're listening to this podcast, the keys, if you don't already have a technology stack underway, whether it's an app or an online ordering system for your website, contactless payment, curbside, loyalty programs like here with Punchh, these are kind of the stakes of the game today. These are no longer wish list items. These are things you've got to have and get in place. When you look at fast casual, last question here, Sastry. Fast casual, got a chance to talk with an operator here recently, and he made a statement to me that really stuck with me, and that is that fast casual operators may be moving away from the line queue. If they're moving away from the line queue, the ordering process is going to change. The whole guest experience is going to change. What are your thoughts on that? Do you like the idea?
I do. In fact, as a funny story, there is a Starbucks literally a 2-minute walk from my house. And we typically go there. I may already be there because the next door is a grocery store.
Okay.
But I still go back to my car, place the order until the order is ready.
I got it.
And just walk straight up to the pickup line.
Yeah.
And that's just that. 2 years ago, that used to be just me.
Yeah.
But I think more and more of us will get more
start
comfortable
doing that
because there's an element of social distance, but also there's a simple element of, if I have regular habits, I always like my latte prepared a certain way.
Yeah.
I don't need to communicate that each time to a new server.
Yeah.
I can simply hit resend orders and I'm done. So you will see this becoming more important for more brands.
For sure.
Some brands have thought of this as something impersonal. But I think customers will appreciate it both for
I think
order
that we're
accuracy.
definitely going to see a little bit of a shift here in fast casual for sure. So you guys heard it right here. We both agree on that, is that the lineless fast casual could become a reality out there. So that's going to be fun. Sastry, it's been great talking to you. Thanks for stopping in on the show today.
Again, appreciate it, Paul. It's always fun to chat with you. And thank you so much for today's time.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so you guys are listening in over on iTunes, maybe on Spotify. That is awesome, because that's how I get great feedback from you. And believe me, the concept of Fast Casual Nation, the podcast, is to bring to you operators around the country and across the world that are doing things a little bit differently. And in this time, we are getting ready to see what I think is a new evolution of what fast casual truly will be. Technology is going to be a big part of this, so make sure and stay tuned right here for more coverage on the podcast. And if you have a great idea, shoot me an email to producer@foodabletv.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. This is Fast Casual Nation. We'll catch you next time.